Somalis did have traditional surgeons, and we can say medicine people, doctors who would perform very interesting procedures, actually. Of course, today, when we talk of medical care, we think of it as being provided, of course, with the help of modern medicine, which mostly comes from the West. But what is lost is that African societies did have their own medical care procedures, including surgery, actually. Amongst the Somalis, they did have people who would perform very complex procedures on the people. And that's what we are going to read about, and also magic and herbal medicine and things like that. And we are going to read from the book Somali Sultanate, the Geledi City-States 150 Years, a book published in the year 2002, written by one Virginia Luling, who was an anthropologist who studied the Somali society beginning the 1960s up to the late 1990s. She was specifically focused on the Geledi Sultanate, so we have to be very careful about that. This is what she writes. There is a range of specialists to whom people turn for help with sickness and other problems. So there were specialists to whom people will turn if they had issues. And she's talking about traditional before modern medicine came along. At one extreme, there are practitioners of traditional surgical techniques such as bleeding. Now, these are very common procedure in many African societies. When you are sick, sometimes they will need to bleed you so that they cure you from your ailment. And maybe we don't know. Today we may be like, did it work? I think it worked. That's why it used to be practiced across Africa. They also did cauterization, which is a procedure of maybe removing some parts of the body to cure somebody. And it happens even in modern medicine. Maybe it's a tumor, things like that. They will be removed or they will be burned to kill them. Of course, that happens in modern medicine, but the Somalis used to have people who understood how to do it traditionally. Bone setting, you have issues with your bones, they had a specialist to set them, and also herbalists, and these are people who will give you some herbal remedies for different kinds of ailments. She continues, in recent decades, these have gained credibility with modern medicine and in turn have borrowed modern medical techniques. So those practices were from, of course, the past, but over time they have been proven to actually be legitimate medical procedures that are even done in modern hospitals. Then she writes a note. In 1974, the Ministry of Health had a number of them sit evaluation tests and awarded certificates to those who succeeded. So the Somalia government in the 1970s decided that instead of throwing away these people, it is important that they are put to be part of the modern medical service delivery system. And they offered some of them to do test examinations, and actually some of them passed those examinations and then they were certified. And I think that was a very good approach, if you ask me. I think we've had this system of looking at African traditional medicine as harmful, not working, it's not necessary, while that's what has been used for thousands of years. And I always say this: the most useful solutions to problems are free. It's just that if nobody is going to make money out of it, then you never hear of it. There must be some plans that do some things. I don't want to put myself in trouble with my video. So she continues, however, a person who can use Gedo herbs for medicinal purposes may also know how to use them as a poison or to gain power over others by splitting concoctions into their tea, coffee, or food. Of course, there is for good and bad. There are those who know these plants and they use them for good, and there are those who could use them for bad. Hence, Gedo is close in meaning to sihir or far, both words that signify magic. And that's similar to Swahili, actually. Even in Swahili, the word muganga has this two-faced meaning. There is a meaning that this is somebody who does magic, but there is also the meaning that this is somebody who understands ailments and can help people overcome their ailments, often using, of course, herbs. And she says the word Dao, of course, like Swahili Dawa, can be translated as medicine, poison, or charm. I think Dao is similar to Swahili Dawa, and same meanings actually apply in Swahili. Then she continues, Sihir Orgedo may be harmless, as in love pictures or charms to make the father of one beloved take favorable view, or even useful, like entirely public spirited use of herbal magic by the work done by her to keep away crocodiles and hippopotamus. Yeah, so there are these charms that were used for different uses for people to make them change their mind. I don't know whether they work, but he says some of them used to work, especially they used to use them to keep away hippopotamus and crocodiles, and seems like it worked. So I think there are things we don't understand or we've ignored to study because we just dismiss them to be superstition and things like that. And I've mentioned in another video that actually mosquito and malaria at one time was considered to be superstition. Richard Burton in 1850s goes to Zealand. The people tell him, you know, mosquitoes cause malaria, and he's like, no, that's superstition. H.G.C. Swain goes to the same place in 1890s, and they tell him, you know, mosquitoes cause malaria. He's like, no, that's superstition. And so there are things probably today we think they are superstition, but probably they are not. There must be some science behind it that we've just not studied enough to discover. But what I found to be very interesting, besides this talk of magic and all that, what I found to be very interesting is the existence of specialists, medical specialists, who would help people through, of course, herbs and also through procedures that were very complex. And I've had the same among the Agikuyu, among the Kalenjin, among the different groups of East Africa. I've had those specialists who will perform different functions. And I think that's a science that was ignored and dismissed. And we thought, whatever, of course, it is based on this belief that whatever is African is inferior, is not good, should not be even given a chance. But maybe we failed ourselves at independence. We should have taken the route that looks like in the 1970s the government of Somalia was taking, and that is trying to look at those people as experts and maybe being like, how do we make them part of the modern system? If it means giving them exams to do and they pass, you give them certifications. Those who don't pass, you might be like, maybe you need to add more skill and knowledge to your craft, maybe by going to college and learning more. But I think most African countries just went along with the European view of that's nonsense, just ignore it. We just need to work with what we've provided you with, and that's what is actually science. Whatever that is not within our box, that's not science. Forget it. Don't even give it attention. And that's why I said there are so many things probably today we think that that's superstition, but may turn out a few years down the road to be actually there is a scientific explanation behind it. Those are my random thoughts.